Actually, at most, the prefrontal cortex is guiding the process. But I think there's one, while we are discussing screens,
Yes.
metaphoric screens and different spaces where the show is going on.
Yes.
Auditory, visual, and
yes.
olfactory, and tactile,
Right.
and so on. I think what is interesting is to think that those spaces, those performance spaces, are separate. They're extremely sophisticated. They tend to be, in terms of brain structure, very, very modern in evolution.
Yes, yes.
They tend to have some of the most sophisticated circuitry. Take, for example, the visual system. Our
Yes.
visual system is an amazing instrument. And of course, the visual system that allows us to perceive right now something with the fine perception that I can
Yes.
have of the depth
Like
and
your
the
tie.
color and
Yeah.
of your sweater and so on. All of that is extremely sophisticated. But then surrounding that, let's consider that like an island in the
Yes,
brain.
yes.
And then surrounding that, there's an ocean, and that ocean is filled with knowledge of how different parts, different components of past perceptions have been put together in time when they were occurring.
Yes.
And so I think that an interesting analogy is the analogy of strings that pull the puppets
Yes.
that are in the performance
Yes,
spaces.
yes.
And so it's not that we should privilege the performance spaces as the thing that matters. Of course, that matters very much because that's where
That's how we
our
live.
consciousness, that's
Yeah.
where our consciousness is actually occurring, quote
Right,
unquote.
right.
But it is occurring there only by the grace of these strings that are being pulled from the other
elsewhere.
space, from
Yes.
this elsewhere,
Yes.
where you have what I like to call convergence, divergence zones,
Yes.
which are in of themselves.
Now
when-
this is
yeah,
you. I just want to say,
yeah.
just pause for a second, because this convergence, divergence, this is what you're making a broader category
Mm-hmm.
for parts of the brain that I recognize, but you are putting it together in a larger context, as I
Correct.
understand after reading your book yesterday.
Good.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just wanted to give that little info.
Your spirit has enlarged tremendously.
Anyway.
But so that's it's very interesting because from a neural standpoint, you could even say that these structures are in of themselves rather dumb. It's not that they know anything consciously. What they know is they have a sort of internal testimony of the simultaneous occurrence of certain things at a certain point.
Yes.
So, for example, if I will tomorrow remember talking to you today,
Right.
I will think of certain words that you have said. Like, for example, the sentence you just said about the book,
Yes.
which I probably will remember in some form.
Right.
And I will remember the fact that you have this sweater that I presume is pink, although I'm not very
Very
good
pink.
with color. It's pink. Is pink okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay.
Deep
And
pink.
the deep pink. And the white shirt and your beautiful blonde hair. So how do I put this thing together? This is occurring right now, and I am recording the simultaneity of occurrence of your voice, of certain ideas, and of certain garments.
Yes.
But they are in different places.
Yes.
So we need to find in the brain a place where signals about all these different things can come together and can make a record of the proximity and simultaneity of this in time. That's what
right.
counts.
Yes. Temporality. We'll go
Exactly.
there next.
Yeah,
Yes.
and once that happens, once that record is made, then it is possible to reactivate the record and to come back into the same regions where this is happening to us right now,
Yes.
and reconstruct something that is going to be a paler version of the original, but is going to relate to the original. And that, by the way, gets us into one very important issue, which is the issue that you don't have a facsimile memory of
No,
anything.
this is important.
Yeah,
yes.
I don't have a memory. I'm not going to have a Polaroid picture of
No,
you right now
no,
talking to me.
no, this is
complete with
important.
soundtrack.
Yes.
What I'm going to have is all these bits and pieces of information with which I will be allowed to reconstruct something of this moment.
That's
but of course,
right.
the reconstruction is not going to be entirely accurate. And
No.
who knows? Maybe that in time I may even make a confusion, and I could be asked in court to say what you
Yes,
were wearing, and I could
yes.
say that you were wearing a blue.
Blue.
a-
Actually,
a-
and I think this is quite important. That the fact that our brains and our memories are not like recording devices,
Right.
not like film, and that is how we make sometimes significant errors.
Significant
and those
error.
errors also can be created by an emotion attached to the experience,
Absolutely, yeah.
so that you can even entirely invert a memory.
Right.
Depending on the motivation in some way, and I don't mean conscious motivation, but a deeply embodied drive or push sometimes that
Yeah.
can have an emotional valence that will change memory.
Right, absolutely.
Yes.
And people, the testimonies in court are very often affected
Yes,
by that. And
yes.
you have all sorts of misattribution errors, inversions of the time sequence, and so on. And
Yes.
that's because we don't have a filmic medium. We don't have celluloid
No.
with an optic soundtrack
No.
attached to it. What we have is this incredibly sophisticated mechanism of transforming bits. It's almost like coding. You have these little bits and pieces that are occurring in time, and then you have the possibility of reconstruction or reactivation, which is very, 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 very intriguing. And by the way, it's extremely economic. The brain, whenever it can, does things fuzzily and lazily. And if there's no need to repeat
Right.
and reinvent the wheel,
No.
it won't.
Well, and
But,
I
yeah.
think this is very important for perception, because perception, the way we perceive things, has to do with deep learning in the brain. And one of my favorite philosophers, who you mentioned a footnote in your most recent book, Maurice Merleau-Ponty,
Oui.
talks about perception and something he calls stereotypes. And in neuroscience, there's a similar idea, which is that the brain also will take in information according to its own expectations.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, because we don't, it's not just that we have memory of the things that we have been living through since we were born. We have past memories that we have inherited through a whole history of evolution before us, that in fact have memories of things that our forerunners have been doing. And I'm not just talking about the human forerunners,
No.
but forerunners that go all the way into reptiles and single cells.
Yes.
Things that have been done in a certain way in life forms,
Yes.
and that have of course been memorized by the biological systems we